Good morning. Happy Friday.
Yeah.
Welcome to the OO Show. We have a slightly reduced cast today for this Friday, April 11th, and hope everybody's doing well and surviving kind of a wild week. So without much further ado, we'll get the show started. Here we go.
Back. Troy's dreaming big like LeBron. Matt's back testing like a daddy Mac. Dan's 30 years got our way, trading life and markets every day. Rusty's chained to the mines, digging deep day by day. But when features, he's free to come out and play option. Omega, you're trading home, where every move makes you feel less alone.
All right, and we'll jump right into it this morning. But we just had core PPI and the regular PPI this morning, and it looks like both of them were below the expectations. The forecast for core was 0.3. It came in negative 0.1, looks like, and PPI the forecast was a positive 0.2. It looks like it actually came in negative 0.4. So news is interesting in these times because in a typical market, you might see something like CPI and PPI having a major move on the market.
Yeah.
And in an environment where we are moving 10% in a day. The market has responded with a futures move. We are currently up 15 points, which for those doing new math in the world of SPX 5300 is not even 0.25%.
That's right.
So, Dan, what do you think of it's hard to do analysis right now because there's so many different factors to consider, but what do you think of the 15-point move in futures compared to the 2% moves we've been having?
It doesn't seem real. I mean, none of this seems real. But you look at, I mean, VIX is projected to open up maybe a couple points, possibly, if that's right. And with the ES pretty kind of unchanged, and it's had a relatively small range overnight, wouldn't you say? So I think today could be, like you said, Troy took a little bit of time off. Yeah, he was tired. Matt's exhausted. It's like people are can't handle this. And I was just saying, I was thinking about something yesterday, Matt. I was thinking about, when you're a coach in sports, and depending on what the team does, you make adjustments, right? And you say, okay, I'm going to make adjustments. Well, when you think about trading 3 months ago,
yes,
right?
Yes,
VIX is under 20, and you could have a cup of lemonade, and things are going relatively slow. And now it's the speed of lightning, and it's like, I mean, there were 2 or 3 times yesterday. I'm thinking, okay, I'm older. I'm thinking of a trade. Okay, we get down. We're in one of these downdrafts. We get down. I'm going to get a few long deltas and something. By the time I figure it out and I'm like analyzing it, it's like we're sticking up 80 point. I'm done. It's like if you're not quick, it's like playing Pac-Man at level 3. You better have your order in. You better be ready, locked and loaded, or have something in, because that's one of the adjustments. As when you think about as a trader, you're basically trading what the market puts in front of you today, right?
That's all you can do.
Not
Sure.
like, well, 5 months ago I was doing this spread. No, it's not 5 months ago. It's today.
That's
And in
right.
today's market, at least up until today, you better have orders in. You better, because it's like once the market turns, what would you call it, Matt? These 1 hour candles or what? I mean, they're like,
yeah. The 100-point candles will continue.
yeah.
The morale
So I think that's, for people who are getting addicted to this, it will continue.
Yeah.
The drug will continue. I think we'll still have some big candles. Even today, you look at today as looks like pretty muted at the opening.
Yes.
But we're just still a second away from, why are we down 100? Why are we up 100?
Yeah. And to your point, how crazy it was, it looks like at 440-ish futures in ES now we're at 52.60. And then 2 hours later, around 6:40, futures were at 53.60-ish. And they just before that at 2 o'clock, so 2 hours the other direction, they were at almost 53.80. So we did have 100-point moves in the futures overnight. And it is this environment. We say it every day. It's historic. And that kind of brings us to the second point on the 0DT rundown for yesterday. The market almost tripped a circuit breaker in the NASDAQ, which has not happened for 5 years. And the last time we had a circuit breaker was in COVID. There are multiple levels of circuit breaker. And from what I understand, and I'm literally not the expert on this, but we actually did get low enough to trip it, but there was just a technical condition because there was a bounce right away that the NASDAQ actually didn't take a pause, but there was a bounce. We talked about it on the show yesterday.
Yeah.
That we had like a 10% move on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Didn't seem like anybody was optimistic that the market was going to hold all of that. And yesterday we ended up finishing down almost 200 points, which was about 3.5%. So is that bullish? Is that bearish? Can anybody know in these times?
Well, it's crazy that, and it just shows that the exchanges who make these rules, hey, if you want to go up 15% in a day,
right,
that's fine.
That's fine.
Do whatever you want to do. But if you go down too far, and I think, but again, I think what it is, it's the evil of the downside. The downside with that speed, right? The upside, can move fast.
Yes.
But you know what? There's more trading on the upside. There's a little more liquidity, but the downside gets, not as many participants. Right. I mean, when I remember in the 1987 crash, I think we were down 27%. But there were moments I was on the trading floor at the Chicago Board Options Exchange, and there was like, at times you thought you were at a funeral. I mean, there wasn't like all this public participants coming in. People were just like hiding under their couch or maybe behind a tree if they could. Whereas on the upside, there's more participants, it seems like. And so I think that's a lot of it. The exchanges responding to what's their experience on the down, and they're dealing with a lot of major problems with individual accounts. Right. When the market's going down, people blowing out or whatever.
As well. Yeah. As well as during some of these crazy times, you see the plumbing a little bit more. Some of the brokers have issues. Some of the tools out there have issues. The platforms can become sluggish. And I remember actually the last time that happening, I remember was in January 2021 during GameStop, when there was so much retail participation in the GameStop experience, which, continued in meme stocks for much of the year. And there were a couple days in January where people, and I'm not just talking about the Robinhood sell thing, I'm just in general, some of the brokers, literally you could tell that the plumbing wasn't sized up to handle what was going through the pipe at the time. So It seemed like there was a little bit of that going on Monday when it looked like futures might, futures almost limited down. I think we were down 5.5%. Yesterday, like I said, NASDAQ was down even more. Seems like the market has the plumbing yesterday was better, although you bring up a great point about market participation. We're gonna get to one right now. I have a
let me if I could just
go ahead.
Quick, you just throw one quick thing. But when you talked about GameStop,
yeah,
I think at times, and I'm not, but sometimes, what's the word? Empathy. Sometimes it's good for retail participants in the market. Sometimes forget.
Yes.
There's human being. Who's making the markets? Like retail participants have this in their retail traders in their world. I should get filled at mid-price no matter what's going on.
Right.
I should get good execution. I should do all this. But sometimes, and it's not that you have to agree with how things are done, maybe in the pits or even the electronic pits, but it'd be good to know, well, what goes on there? Or, there's a person. I mean, now it's a computer, but it's still run by a person that's programming it. But I mean, all these market makers, their main job is accommodate the public. So they have to supply a bid and the ask both ways. So if you're in a situation like GameStop, and let's say it's going up and they're just buying and this thing is going up,
right?
The whole function of a market maker, at least the idea in spirit is, I can buy in the bid and sell on the ask, get my hedges off, and I could make, 10 cents or whatever, 10, on a trade. You're just a wholesaler. That's all you are.
That's right.
Well, it breaks down. And when you say, like, it's not so much the exchanges break down, but if I'm a market maker in there and GameStop and everybody's buying calls. So what I'm doing is let's say I sell 100 calls at the money, it's a 50 delta. So all I'm trying to do is make a little bit difference between the bid and ask. So I sell, 100 calls at a 50 delta, that's 5,000 delta short. So then what do? The only way I can hedge that, there's no one that's going to help me.
Right.
There's not enough liquidity in it. My fellow market makers aren't going to help me out there in the same situation. I have to go in and buy 5,000 shares of GameStop.
Yep.
So now I go into GameStop and I buy it. There's nothing. So now I was trying to make $10. Now I'm down $1,000 on this goofy short calls. So what happens is the exchanges will I've got to make wider bid ask.
That's right.
I can't get my hedge off. So for the system to work, that's why, when you think liquid, trade liquid vehicles like Tesla or SPY.
Yeah.
Well, it's because you can go in there and do, the market makers can give you tighter bid ask because there's volume in the stock, right?
That's right. And they can do their job with the hedging and the neutrality on the deltas. And
it breaks down. So I think it's, as retail traders, you can use that to your advantage, knowing that when things are crazy, there's certain things you can't do, and you can't expect to get filled at mid prices. If you're buying a call and we're jumping up, 1% in 5 minutes, you're not going to get it. So I think understanding how things work in the pit would help retail traders not get an ulcer as they deal with execution. But anyways, go ahead.
That is actually a fantastic point and brings us to our next point because Wednesday, April 9th, we're calling it Colmageddon. So shout out to the Option Omega Discord for the name Colmageddon. I don't know if we came up with that, but the Discord's claiming it. So whoever came up with that on the Discord, shout out to you. And we started talking about exactly what you are discussing, the execution of orders during that insane multiple 100-point move, like basically a 10% move in a very short span of time. And one of our OO subscribers posted this, and I got his permission to use this. So this is a screenshot of an order that he had that you can see he looks like he bought it for 10 cents. And there was just one, but it was a 15 wide broken butterfly and it filled at $14.60. So this was during that chaos. So absolutely wild fills. And there were times, and Dan, we could probably do another show on this, what is some of the plumbing and what are some of the technical things that happen when the market experiences such crazy moments of instability? Because not only did the bid and the ask widen, but there were folks who posted screenshots where the ask went, there was no ask for a brief moment in time.
That's
I think
right.
around 119 and 120, there was no ask. So you might say, how does somebody get filled on that?
Yeah, it's. Can you bring that up again, Matt? I want to
Sure.
make a few. I mean, that's an interesting trade, and for a couple of reasons. I want to bring this up. Folks, this is the type of trade. In this type of market, when you think about, this isn't a balanced butterfly. This is broken wing. So
Yeah.
obviously, this individual, when the market was down, right, and
Yeah.
they're saying, what are some cheap shots in a $5,000 vehicle?
Yeah.
That
And
we
it
can
filled
do?
for 1460.
Yeah, at 14 and did the 5185, 5200. So that width is 15.
Yeah. If you pinned it perfectly.
Yeah, and then
Right.
5200, 5210. So it's a 15 by 10 kind of broken wing butterfly. Now, I'm amazed at a couple things. One, he paid 10 cents. I mean, so he just obviously this was like an expected move type deal where, hey, I'm betting I'll take a flyer that we go up 300 points in a day or two or whatever it is. And the fact that he paid 10 cents meant, we were, I'm guessing at the time of the trade, maybe at 4,800, 4,700.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe
right?
about 10% away, right?
Yeah. We were,
What's
we
a
were
couple
far
hundred
away.
points between
But again, you
friends?
think about that for 10 cents. I wish, what a great trade. They sold it at 14. And the first thing, so I think these are the type of plays when people are looking at what are some trades in a wild market that I can do that are cheap, that are, these type of not balanced butterflies. Because the problem with a directional balanced butterfly, if it goes too far,
You got to
right,
pin it.
you can lose
gotta,
money because
yeah.
with a balanced butterfly, when you start out like a directional balanced butterfly,
Yeah.
you're not getting any delta. So if we go to where you want it to go, you could look at it like, where's my dough? Where's my money? Whereas here, the individual started with a little long delta because he's got one end wider. But I think those are wonderful type, cheap little shots.
Fixed risk.
My only thing is, I wish, it would have been a much more exciting show today if instead of him showing one contract, he had like 500 or something. That would have been, we would have been saying, this guy is the new GameStop. What was that guy? He's the GameStop guy. What was his name?
Yeah, Roaring Kitty.
Warren Kitty. Yeah, that's it, Roaring Kitty. That was a great, but the execution, it was just like, once he bought it and this thing was running, that you have an order in. Did it show what he had the limit order in for? Or
I don't know. I can try to get more information.
That's a great.
To the point, Troy, I don't know if he showed this on the show. If not, we can have him show it next week, but he had a order he was trying to sell. He was long on a debit order and was trying to sell it for, I think, $38. We'll have him get the screenshot and we can show it next week. And he ended up getting filled at over $10 above what he was trying to sell it for. So, we hear a lot of stories about negative slippage because most of the stories people have on slippage are when they have a stop market order on a single leg at a broker and the stop gets absolutely wrecked on a huge move. And that's a common story to hear. It's much less common to hear a story of, hey, I tried to sell this and I got filled $1 better than what my sell price is. But those things also do happen during times like this. Market instability defined, when they talk about market instability, there may very well be a picture of April 2025 next to that description because it's just been really wild times. So
I'm just more concerned the other side of the coin for students. These are wonderful stories, and I love these, and I think this is the epitome of that you can do cheap shots, right? at cheap shots and expensive vehicles. But, you know, what I'm seeing more on a daily basis is, you know, Dan, I tried to go in and buy this. You know, I thought it was I watched the mid price or
Right.
I mean, there is no such thing as a mid price. It's
That's
mid
right.
range. I bought it for, you know, $7, but it was really trading around $5.
Wow.
And,
Yeah.
but the market, yeah. And, you know, some vehicles, right? Like if you're in a very liquid vehicle, like
Yes.
SPY or something,
Right.
a lot of times, you know, and I've done this week as far as I studied it. I thought I was buying a good mid price. I went in at $7 and they might have given it to me for $6.70. So I
Right.
got it cheaper because they're saying, hey, this is where
Right.
we're trading it. But if you're not in a liquid vehicle
Right.
and you go in there, they're not as great, they're not as merciful.
That's
They're
right.
not as graceful.
It's
Because
Hotel California. You can
that's
check
right.
in, you can't
Oh
check
yeah,
out.
yeah. Isn't that how you call what do you call XSP that, right?
Yes, XSP has been
Hotel
referred to as
California. I love
Hotel
that. I love
California.
that. So
And that's true of a lot of these option plays, especially if people are long something that's very far out of the money. You know, many times the liquidity is only going to be entering it. It's going to be a different thing to exit it. If you buy a lotto in a direction and you want to get out when it's down by half, that may, depending on what you're doing, that may very well not be possible. And these kind of markets where you just have crazy moves are wonderful times to see what the potential things are, things that you never thought could happen. And you think, what's the best that could happen or what's the worst that could happen?
yeah.
That definition may get redefined during this type of event.
Oh yeah, and I think the other thing, you know, when I look at like VIX for instance, we're at 4274, and you think, okay, the markets doesn't seem to be doing much at the opening.
Right.
Why is VIX up 2 points?
Yeah.
And the first thing you do is look at, well, what was the high in VIX yesterday? Basically 55, right? 55, the low is 34. So there's still uncertainty. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
and I could be wrong, Matt. I just think that there's some information out with this tariffs, right? Where I don't think, and I could be wrong, dead wrong here, but I don't think that 70 or 80 is necessarily on the table.
You mean as far as VIX?
As far as VIX, I think
Right.
I think we've come, even in the market, I think we've kind of come to maybe a little more range. You know, VIX, obviously, you know, could we hit, you know, is the range 3060 now or for the next week or
Right.
something like that? Or I still think we have you know, the expected moves are still going to be pretty wide for next
Yes.
week, but
Yes.
I think things will slow. I mean, people get in this, you know, you get geared up and it's like, yeah, you come to trading expecting we're going to get a 3% move today. And
Right.
we, you know, we may probably not, right? I don't think those
Right.
things are going to last a heck of a long time, but I
Right.
think that is pretty amazing that VIX, you never used to see it move like that, but to see
Right.
that you're having 30-point ranges
Crazy.
in VIX, I mean, it's just, it's ludicrous, but
Yeah. And I think
anyways, man,
that-
if you could get that person who did that trade for 10 cents and sold it for, if you can get his autograph for me, I would be very, I'm impressed. That is great.
there you
And
go.
not only did he, I mean, it's one thing if he bought it at like $4 or $5, he paid 10 cents, right?
Crazy. Yeah, I think I'll confirm that I'm reading that screenshot right. But yeah, I believe so. So
It's a wonderful trade.
I mean, again, as Paul Simon says, strange times. We'll wrap up here a little bit earlier than normal. Final thing, the chat is asking, what do you guys make of the bond move today? And I am try to stay in my lane. My bond knowledge is extremely minimal. But I think the bond market, as people talk about during big moves, people watch the stock market, but the bond market is perhaps, I don't want to say more important, but certainly maybe the loudest voice in the room at times. And I think I saw the headline earlier today. I believe the bond market is, some of the traditional holders of U.S. bonds are starting to sell them. Well, they're always being bought or sold, but there was some negative pressure on U.S. bonds. And so, the story is, and this may come out later, but the story that I've read is on Wednesday that when Trump did his outsider trading tweet, this is a good time to buy, had the news announcement on the tariff pause, that the market responded with a 10% move, but that was people who owned bonds and his advisors going to him ahead of time regarding the bonds, saying, hey, this is maybe not a great plan right now to see the carnage in bond land. And so I don't know if we're going to get more to that story. Dan, do you have any thoughts on bonds?
I'm like you. I'm not that knowledgeable on that, but I mean, just from what I've heard and stuff. I mean, when you think about it, if you're a government and President Trump is with a government, governments are more concerned with bonds. I mean, that doesn't affect their daily lives as much.
Right.
Stocks, but bonds is their, financing and all that stuff. It's much more, it hits them right. That's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And all that stuff. That's a real issue.
Right. And I'll just finish this up by saying, several of the voices in, everybody has an opinion on what's going on right now. But one of the things that's been raised, I saw Taleb tweeting about this. Tom Sosnoff actually was talking about this on Tasty Live the other day. This idea that you can say a lot of things about Trump, but one of the things you can say about Trump that undeniable, however you feel, is that he moves markets. And there's a level of uncertainty that comes with that. And I think the point that Taleb was making a point about the length of the investment cycle that's required to structurally reduce some of the things that Trump talks about as far as reshoring and whatnot. And Sosnoff was talking about instability from a different perspective, and the instability that people who are looking at their retirement accounts are feeling, And when I think of bonds, like to your point, these are vehicles that are bedrock vehicles for the global financial system. And a lot of times they're viewed on a more long-term basis. And so when things start happening with wide bid-ask spreads in the bond market, that's when I think people get concerned. And will be interesting to see if more to the story ever comes out on what happened as far as that pause. And here's the thing, that pause was 2 days ago. We almost had a circuit breaker yesterday. We don't even know how significant Wednesday, April 9th is going to be in all of this, because we are living history. So,
I want to say I have a special indicator.
Yes.
That I'll share with the viewers.
Okay.
I don't normally share this kind of inside information, but my Panera Bread Indicator.
Yes.
I go in the morning.
Yes.
Usually I go to Panera. There's a group of older men, and we'll try to solve most of the world's problems in 45 minutes. Some are there at 6, and the Panera where I go, it's 6 in the morning, because they're
working hard. They're getting
time at 6 in the morning. Which I don't make it the early shift. They'll have 5 or 6 fourth whatever chairs, and they'll fight for these chairs, and they're all But this is the first time I've seen. Here's my Panera Bread Indicator, where normally when the market's down, they just laugh. They laugh because it's like and they don't even talk about it. They're not talking about it. The local sports scene, they'll get it. But this week, Unnerved, and even some of them are staunch supporters of the president.
Sure.
And they're like, as they're biting their lip, I wish he could do, he could have done it a little bit differently. And I'm like, these are guys that you can tell it's bothering them, right?
Sure.
It's, because usually you don't see the retirees bothered with the stock market because it'll come back.
Right.
And this has kind of got their limit. And I haven't seen that. Right. in a
Yes.
while that this uncertainty, and they're like blaming him a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was,
That's fast. We're going to have to make this a weekly check-in. We'll have to do the PBI, the Panera Bread Indicator, on Fridays.
yeah.
We'll get a check-in of what the temperature is. And because I think you're right. I mean, I think there was this is a crash, and the ferocity of it is both ferocious and controlled at the same time. Like, it's hard, like, it's crazy to say it's controlled, but I mean, VIX has been elevated for several months, and we've had insane intraday swings. We still haven't tripped a circuit breaker. And at the same time, I mean, we talked for a long time about how VIX wasn't taking things seriously. A month ago, that's what we're saying. It's taking it seriously now. And more importantly, the Panera Bread Indicator might be taking things seriously.
Yeah,
so,
and I'd be happy to maybe some morning we can do like
we can do a live.
We can do a live from there, and you'll get some very interesting opinions.
Sure.
Unfiltered. We might have to have an editing crew on
site.
But I just want to make one comment on, I think Stephen was saying that, just reiterating, you look at the futures right now, they're down 23 and VIX is up 4.
Yeah.
And you could say, well, wait a second. Down 23, that seems high for VIX. It isn't in this sense. Again, reflect on yesterday.
Right.
Yesterday, VIX was, so it's when you look at kind of where VIX is right, kind of yesterday, the VIX high, I think when we were near 5,200 area or where, whatever that was down there. Let me bring it up here. We were trading. Yeah, what did we get to yesterday in the E? I mean, the low was like 51.46 in the futures.
Yeah.
But VIX was dramatically higher. So yesterday, the VIX high was almost 55. Now, I know there was a low of 34, but I think that's where two issues with the VIX today.
Yes.
One, the range of yesterday taken into consideration. But again, as they say, it's Friday, right? A lot can happen. Saturday, Sunday, a lot of tweets can go on.
Yes.
And I just think there's that when you have uncertainty and then you bring in a 2-day, vacation, there's anxiety. How do I want to go over the weekend?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just going to close some positions today. So I don't think, VIX isn't reflecting right now. VIX isn't reflecting right now, the market, right? I mean, no.
Yeah.
Should on a 22-point move down on the futures, should VIX be up 4? No. But if you 10%. Take into account where it was yesterday and the weekend, why not up 6?
And it raises the question: is there going to be, depending on, we have no idea what the market's going to do ever, but especially not today. But Friday afternoon, this would seem like VIX would maybe pump a little bit into the close as the weekend, like you said, this is 2 days of news and no SPX to trade. So it will be very interesting to watch, and we'll do a blow by blow on Monday. I'm sure the market's going to give us something to talk about. So
and last thing, Matt, the expected move for today is about 135 points.
Seems low. Seems low, Dan.
Yeah, that doesn't mean we have to do that, but we'll keep an eye on that. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Guys, stay safe out there. Have a great weekend. Get some time outside away from the screens. It's not financial advice, it's life advice. So have a great one, everybody. Take care.